Hi, my name is Josh Rogers, aka Jpreneur. I am an entrepreneur and investor, and I am a registered sex offender. I used to have a porn addiction, an underage porn addiction that I no longer have. I'm no longer addicted to that. And I I don't condone any of that behavior in the least. It is a very disgusting world and a very evil group of people that harm children and exploit them and things of that nature. I went to prison, and it took about a year for me to find out that the prison I was in was operating a human trafficking underground. And before I go any further, I would like you to check out this woman, Katie, I believe her name is Katie Groves. She goes by Dylan Groves on YouTube. Check out her video.
Hello, my name is Katie Groves, and I am a survivor of the child snuff industry. This video is about my experience growing up in a child snuff ring known as Uncle Sam's Snuff Factory. This ring was located in Central Texas, and I will speak about it in the past tense only because I do not have current knowledge of its existence. But that does not mean I have any reason to believe that it has been shut down. Based on my hazy recollections, hazy because of the torture, the dissociation, the drugging, etc., the MK programming, I cannot give you an exact location, but I know that it was somewhere in Central Texas. My home was in Austin, and I recall the drives being about 45 minutes to get to this place. I recall it being in farmland, the entrance at least, but most of the ring being underground. Many people have a hard time believing that child snuff exists, that even snuff exists, then let alone that high-ranking government officials and military agencies orchestrate it. To believe that there are deep underground military bases that commit mass genocide against children, film it, and sell it on the black market for quote-unquote gore whores, snuff fiends, slop sluts, snuff kings. To watch it is unfathomable to most people. Unfortunately, that is reality, and that is a reality I know too well. I spent the first 17 years of my life being taken to that place on a near daily basis, sometimes held for longer periods of time, in which I was incarcerated, did not know if I would ever see daylight again. I've witnessed thousands of murders, largely of children of color, who were systematically targeted for their race by the white supremacist government, which runs the United States. They called it Uncle Sam's Snuff Factory as a private joke, as if it was a mom and pop shop a local business. Uncle Sam was supposed to be a friendly figure. A figure in American propaganda supposed to look at like a father, like a friend. The snuff factory, also known as the genocide factory, is the very literal definition of hell on earth. It is not unique. There are other places like it all over the world. I have been trafficked there as well. But what I can say is there is no place like Uncle Sam's. It is one of those places where a person can get literally anything they want for the right price if they have the connections to be there. I have seen wealthy, aristocratic white women ordering children of color on menus to be delivered dead, cooked on platters in a wing of the place they called Cannibal's Kitchen. And the reason I'm alive and the reason I survived is because I was born into an organized crime family involved with the CIA who ran this operation. And I had the genetics, the family background to be a candidate for perpetration, for continuing the cycle of violence, from being one of the quote-unquote leaders or members of the group involved. So I was kept alive for experimentation, for slavery, for use. I have fought my way out, and if you want to learn about that, you can watch any of the videos on my channel. It'll be informative. But I still suffer every day deeply with the post-traumatic stress. I have polyfragmented dissociative identity disorder as a result. It actually goes beyond the polyfragmentation. I have something called exponential fragmentation, which I have spoken of in some videos I'll put in the description below, so that you can understand the level of trauma that this type of abuse can create. I weep for my brothers and sisters in this place, the ones who are undoubtedly still alive and suffering there. I weep for the dead, but death is a merciful option in a place like that. No, that does not mean that I am not grateful for my survival, but grateful is a hard word to use in the circumstance. How does one feel gratitude when they have witnessed such carnage? Because we're not just talking about death, we're talking about the worst possible ways to die. Children being boiled alive in shit and piss that predators paid to donate into iron tubes. We're talking about children cut apart, fed to other children for people's sexual gratification. And most don't want to look at it, and I do not blame you. I do not blame the survivors of this abuse who stay dissociated, who remain used and enslaved because they cannot look either, because they cannot come to terms with their experiences. And I do not blame the general public who will not look. But this is reality. And all I ask of those who watch this is that you remember that while it may be excruciatingly painful for you to look at this reality, to think about this being possible, there are children. I ask you to remember and acknowledge that there are children who are surviving it every day. There are children enduring this, dying in this, and surviving this, who have to carry that pain all alone. And if they can do that, maybe you can muster the strength, if you have it, to look to think about it just enough to get involved in some way to stop the madness. And no, I do not expect you to find this place, to find these underground trafficking rings, bust down the doors, and rescue these kids. I doubt if that will ever happen before World War III comes or some epidemic and wipes us all out, while the people who perpetrate this remain alive in their underground worlds, and so on and so forth. Don't even want to go into the whole NWO thing right now. No, I don't expect that from you. I don't expect you to stop this in that way. But there are people fighting human trafficking. There are people who need voices. And at the very least, I encourage you to extend your support in some way to those who have survived, even if you cannot help those who are lost. I don't know how to help those who are lost. But there are people like me, and no, I'm not asking for myself, but for everyone. There are people like me who have survived these things who need help. They need therapists, we need doctors, we need lawyers, we need support, we need friends. We need new family because most of us have lost ours. And if you can be that for somebody, you can help the collective damage created by these rings. And hopefully one day that collective spirit will be strong enough to take this stuff out at its source, to go down into the trenches and actually rescue the majority of the children in child trafficking who never make it out. Thank you.
Without any further ado, after watching that video, let's get into some experiences that I had while inside prison. I didn't get involved in what they were doing, and in fact, they are trying to kill me. They are planning on killing me for the knowledge that I know. They don't want this to get out. For the things that I've witnessed. And also because they know that I'm an entrepreneur and that I am going to become successful in the future. And they want what's inherently mine, what I've created. So I'll go on the record to say that these people are very powerful, and it's not just the inmates of the prison that were operating this human trafficking underground within the prison and outside of the prison walls. It was the entire administration. It was the entire administration all the way up to the parole board and prison officials. I mean, this is corruption at the highest levels of the prison system. And I spoke to a friend of mine after I got out of prison and told him about my experiences, and he told me that the prisons are run by the Illuminati. And I have reason to believe that he is right. And this, I didn't even tell him like the full extent of my experiences, but it all comes together and makes sense. And I also have reason to believe that the prison was working alongside with the CIA, and this was a CIA operation. So these prisoners and these prison officials are able to shapeshift into anything they so choose. They can morph. My cellmate was laying in his bunk, and he morphed into a woman right in front of my eyes, and asked me if I wanted to have sex with him. I declined the offer. A CO, a correctional officer, grown man, shapeshifted, didn't morph, but shapeshifted. There's two differences. But he shapeshifted into a young boy, a child, right before my eyes, and then shapeshifted back into himself, to show me what was possible if I was to join. And there were different races. Like, they shapeshifted into they can shapeshift into any race they so choose. They probably most likely shapeshift into animals as well. But this is so difficult to talk about. They were killing women and children. They were eating them. They were eating children. They were drinking their blood. They were sacrificing them in ritualistic sacrifices for sexual gratification. And they were cleaning up their bodies, like every day. They would be tinkering with tools in secret hideaways and within the prison buildings and stuff, underground, and the underground tunnel system that the prison had, and underground chambers. They had like whole gymnasiums that were connected by tunnels throughout the prison, and the gymnasiums were under the buildings of the prison. There was many buildings within the prison, and they had rows and rows and rows and rows of bunks bolted to the floor of the gymnasium underground, and that's where they would have orgies. That's where they would do a lot of their things in the dark, where they would murder and eat or drink children's blood and things like that.
Let's talk about the McMartin case. In April 1985, authorities went to the McMartin case and looked for tunnels under the school. The children had said that they were taken into tunnels under the school. There was a chamber down there. They were sexually molested. That involved ceremonies, adults with robes, candles, chanting. Adults had no clothes on under their robes. And they were taken up into a tunnel and a triplex, a bathroom trapdoor of the triplex next door. They were taken out in automobiles. We're talking about 2, 3, 4-year-old children, folks, and prostituted in the community. The authorities received this complaint in 1983. They began their investigation. The authorities finally, in 1985, went out and decided to look for the tunnels because they said the children were hallucinating. The children also said that they were taken by air up into a mountainous area where they were exposed to satanic ceremonies based on what they described, and brought back in time for the parents to pick up the kids. So the authorities didn't find anything. We're getting off. Pull those next slides. Well, I'll tell you what. In the spring of 1993, I heard that the property of the McMartin School had been sold from the McMartin family to the defense attorney, actually given to him. He didn't make enough off the county. His bill was only $3 million. And from there, he said he was broke and he sold it to a contractor. The contractor was going to build an office building on the space. And I heard that the contractor had this property. And so I went out and contacted him. And I said, dear sir, I would like to have access to that property. He said, I'll give you 2 weeks. I signed a contract, assumed liability, and along with some of the parents, we hired an archaeologist from UCLA, Dr. Gary Stickle, knowing full well that I'm not qualified to say there's tunnels under there, even if I found them. And we began our dig. At the end of 2 weeks, I had to stall, because Dr. Stickle was not quite ready to admit there were tunnels. It took us 34 days. At noon the 34th day, with the bulldozers, with their motors running, ready to knock the building down, he was going to knock the building down and then build this office building. Dr. Stickle said, you know, I can say without any question right now, there have been tunnels under the school, they were filled in. Now, I'm going to show you the documentation on the tunnels. This is it. No, keep it there. Keep that there. This is the what we found. This is a preliminary report. I have a 186-page scientific report available to you out here if you're interested, by the way. We found a 9-foot wide subterranean entrance under the west wall of dog room. There were 4 classrooms. That was Ray Bucky's room. By the way, Virginia McMartin and Ray Bucky were tried. Virginia, the grandmother, was acquitted. Ray had a hung jury. And we found these tunnels in the middle of the second trial of Ray Bucky. They could have been used to convict him. We called the prosecutor. He sent his investigator out, Mr. Perez. Mr. Perez told me, I don't want you entering in my conversation with the archaeologist. I said, why? He says, you're too argumentative. And I said, well, okay, you go in and talk. I'll just keep my mouth shut. We went in, he talked, and he argued with the archaeologist. Here's an investigator not qualified to talk about tunnels. He said, there aren't any tunnels there, and the archaeologist, of course, argued. But anyway, they didn't use that evidence. Strong evidence in the second trial. They ignored it right in the middle of the second trial. I might mention this. The children identified professional football players, professional baseball players, household name actors, actresses, and the son of the leading politician, not a leading politician, the leading politician in Los Angeles as being perpetrators. Okay, we found an avocado tree root cut on both sides of the entrance, and I'll show you this in just a few minutes. The entrance of the tunnel, as I said, it was 9 feet across the top, and on one side was a live avocado root, on the other side was a dead avocado root. They had to cut that out. We have this, by the way. We found a plastic Disney bag, copyright 1982, about 4.5 feet below the classroom floor, and 3 to 6 inches in from the entrance and under the foundation. Now, the reason that plastic Disney bag is so important is because we think that they filled the tunnel in 1982 when the complaint was initially brought to the attention of the authorities. I said 83 earlier, it's 82 when the complaint was made. And when they filled it in, the plastic Disney bag somehow or other flew in there as they were filling it in and nobody noticed it. Now, who says there is no God, right? What documentation, fantastic documentation, that tunnel, the entrance to that tunnel, this is right at the entrance, was filled in 1982 or sometime subsequent to 1982. Mr. Ken Lanning, the outstanding, know-it-all FBI expert, behavioral science, says that I took that garbage bag in 1993 out of a trash can and placed it there, that I planted evidence. Of course, Mr. Lanning says there's no organized satanic movement in this country today. There's only a few dabblers here and there. Thank you, sir. We have another 3 hours to go. Okay, can you hang in there? Okay, the tunnel proceeded south, then 45 feet through classroom 4 and 3 and north, then 10 feet within the classroom 4. The tunnels were 30 inches wide, 44 to 46 inches deep, with the top of the tunnel 30 inches under the classroom floor. the children were able to walk through it. We're talking about young kids now, right? The adults had to stoop down and walk through it, but they could do it. The tunnels were built in kind of a triangular, or I should say a semicircle type, so that they had natural support, I guess. These people know everything. They are brilliant. The footing between classroom 3 and 4 was arched, for the tunnel passed underneath it, and 12 inches shorter in depth at this location than the same footing 12 feet to the north. I'll show you that in just a minute. That's significant, because the arch was where the tunnel went, and it was arched in that particular location, whereas 12 feet away, it was 12 inches longer or thicker. Footing between, let's see, there were 4 large upright containers were found in the tunnel under the arch, obviously hand-placed. A 9-foot wide chamber was found along the tunnel across classroom 4. The top of the chamber and the top of sections of the tunnel had layers of plywood covered with tar paper, which had apparently been supported by cinder blocks and 2x2 and 2x4 wooden posts found underneath. Tunnel features made it evident that the tunnels had been hand-dug. The 7-foot tunnel extended into the triplex next door. Tunnel extended from the bathrooms off the office and classroom 1 to the front yard of the triplex next door. Front yard concealed from the street by a 3-car garage. Children described the entrance and exiting tunnels in the triplex yard exactly where the tunnels and exit were found. A 39 by 41 inch area under a hole cut in this neighbor's bathroom floor had been excavated and subsequently tilled. Now, that was where the kids told us ahead of time that they were taking out up in the trapdoor in this bathroom. And there was a crawl space in the house about like this, and we got one of our skinny archaeologists to go in there, take pictures. The bathtub protruded underneath the floor of the bathroom. There was a bathroom in the back of the same building in another apartment. It did not protrude there. This was the space we're talking about, 39 by 41 inches. Just enough room for a kid to come up and be taken out. Other significant facts: small white plastic plate with 3 pentagrams, hand-drawn on the top of the light green paint, was found by the archaeologists. Pentagrams were hand-drawn by an adult and not part of the manufacturer's design. Many other artifacts were found whose analysis will be released upon completion of the test. The analysis has been released. That's the scientific report I told you about. No doorknobs were on classroom 3, only a deadbolt lock. Each classroom had an on and off switch which was labeled fire alarm. The system did not connect to the fire station but was used as an alert within the school if somebody came around. More than 2,000 artifacts were found under the school floor, including over 100 animal bones. Due to the constraints and time constraints and so forth, we had to discontinue the process on noon the 34th day. By the way, this cost us, a lot of people donated their time. It still costs us money. It cost us between $55,000 and $60,000. I personally put in $17,000, which I ended up, in many instances, paying over a long-term period payment plan. This is a floor plan of the whole lot.
Now I'm in a group home. I'm trying to get out of here, looking to get my own place. So that's why you see all these people and all the noise behind me. But it was a really traumatizing experience. The prison had guns inside the prison. They had automatic weapons, high-powered automatic rifles. They had handguns, revolvers, things like that. Oftentimes you would hear gunshots go off underground in the tunnel system. And I came to learn that they were a satanic cult. I also have reason to believe that these individuals are no longer human. If I were to join, I would no longer be myself. I would be a reptilian, alien, human hybrid of sorts, or either that or reptilian shapeshifted into my form to take over my body, or to take my place. I have reason to believe that they are not human, that they are reptilian, and the reason for that is on a number of occasions they hissed at me with their tongues, with a forked serpent's tongue, and they had a second set of eyelids. You can look this up on Instagram. There's videos of up close with people's eyes, and they're closing their eyelid, their second set of eyelids. It's a clear film that you can see through. It's like a cartilage, and when it closes, it makes a clicking sound when you close it hard enough, I guess. And the pupil will turn into a slit, like a reptile's eye. And
this shapeshifter wants the world to know that shapeshifting is real. He or she proves it by filming a close-up of his or her eye. In the corner of his or her eye, there's a hidden door. That door can close, and then the true nature of the shapeshifter is revealed.
if you know anything about reptilians, they are widely known among the conspiracy theory communities as shapeshifters, and they're able to shapeshift into anything that they so choose. So that coincides with my experiences and what I told you about the shapeshifting earlier. So if these people are reptilian hybrid, human hybrids, or just reptilians in themselves, taking human form to deceive, they are shapeshifters, and they can levitate. They can use light. They can like shoot light out of their, I don't know if it's their hands or things like that. They can I was often attacked with light. People were shooting light at me. They can I don't know if they can teleport, but I had an experience where I almost teleported, but I backed out of it because I got fearful of getting stuck in between or something. But it happened suddenly. I was about to teleport, and but like a lot of the things that they were capable of, even though I hadn't joined them, like I would catch myself automatically somehow about to do it. Like I almost shapeshifted once, but again, your mind is a very powerful thing. Willpower is a very powerful thing. So I almost shapeshifted, and I felt out of control because it happened without my control, my consent. So I opted out of it, and mentally, and it stopped. And I did morph at one point. You're gonna think I'm crazy for all the things that I just said, but if you do any research into any of these aspects, like, and go do a deep dive into it, like, you'll come to realize that there's a lot of truth to what I'm saying. But I did morph into a lion at one point. I almost went on all fours, but I, again, mentally opted out of it, and I transformed back into a human. I actually I was roaring as this lion. I think it was a white lion, because I was angry at another prisoner I'm Native American. He was also Native American from Canada, and he called me a woman or a girl, and he did a cat call as he walked by, and I felt deceived, and I was like, I thought we stuck together because we're the same race, we're the same people, and we have this understanding. So I had a deep-seated rage, this anger within me boil up, and I was seething, and I transformed into a lion. And I've heard of this happening with a child. I was following some things on YouTube, some like shape-shifting how-to videos or something, which you can't find much on YouTube about. There's really nothing out there that can teach you. That's why I believe they were working with the CIA, because the CIA does all these top secret programs and stuff. They do investigations into higher consciousness and like remote viewing and astral projection and things like that, and they keep it classified. Some things you can find if you go on the CIA's website and stuff. They have declassified material that discusses a lot of their programs with psychics and psychic spying and things like that. So there's a CIA document that has been declassified that confirms that the universe or reality is a hologram, and that we are living in a holographic reality. So there's many different things about it. That there's CIA documents that talk about how our minds can manipulate reality and manipulate and manipulate matter. So there's a lot of experiences that I had within prison that are in alignment with those exact things that I just talked about, like mind manipulating reality and affecting matter and things like that. I witnessed somebody materialize physical matter out of thin air, but it wasn't just like a gold coin, which is something I would do. I would manifest gold coins as an entrepreneur and investor. I would manifest gold coins endlessly. That's something I would do. No, just kidding. I would have infinite amounts of money. But I saw somebody who was walking behind me, another inmate, and I was talking to another inmate, and I had my back turned towards him, and I heard a snap, and I turned around and looked, and in his hand he had a switchblade, and as I was looking at it, as he was walking by me, it disappeared into thin air, right in his hand. So that's very possible. The mind is a very powerful thing. Imagination creates. Your imagination can create reality. You can manifest $100 bills out of thin air if you wanted to. You just have to connect to source energy, which is God, essentially. But they were a satanic cult, so I don't know if they were connecting to source energy in order to do that, or they were being deceived by the devil himself. Because what I have come to realize is the Illuminati is a secret society that's run by the devil. So is the Freemasons. So is all the other secret societies out there. They are secret for a reason, because they worship the devil. They worship Lucifer, and they do these things underground, in underground tunnels and things like that, underground layers where they hide from the light. They do things in the dark, like sacrifice children, drink their blood, things like that. There's a lot of that going on in Hollywood, and I'm risking my life talking about this, but not that my life is already at risk. They are planning to kill me even before I came out and talked about this. Every single day while I was in my cell and we were on COVID lockdown, they would be in the secret floors. There's like secret compartments within the prison and stuff that's only accessible by the tunnels. And I was told that the prison was built for this stuff. So they were they had like a secret floor in between floors. They had a secret floor in between floors, and this one happened to be above my floor. So above my cell, they would be every single day snipping away at dead bodies with a tool, or like clippers or something, and then like snipping away at tendons or something. I would hear it every single morning. They would be like tenderizing the skin, like they would skin the body, and they would be tenderizing the skin by like smashing a tool, probably like a tenderizer, on the floor, and I heard that every morning. But there was times, like almost every single day up until my release from the prison, where they would whack at the floor with a machete, and directly above my head. And they were threatening me because I didn't join them. I actually went up against them. I was fighting them verbally and mentally, and I was fighting them. I basically was their opposition. I was their enemy, and they became my enemies. And there's over 1,000 inmates in that prison, but there's always more inmates coming to the prison. I don't know if it's on a daily basis, but people come in and go in that prison. People are being released. People are coming. New people are coming. So that number becomes astronomically bigger. So I have over 1,000 enemies. It could be like in the hundreds of thousands, or tens of thousands, because you take into consideration the women and children that are indoctrinated into this underground, and they also are a part of their system, and they also could be my opposition. They could also be my enemy, and if they were to, they might know my face, So they and there's reasons for that, because they had the prison. They had like cameras everywhere. There was cameras everywhere, and they used nanotechnology. So there's like cameras and these little nanotechnology and microphones and stuff like that, and it'd be placed all throughout my cell and all throughout the prison and stuff. And plus, I was on camera within the prison and things like that. So they could very well know who I am, these women and children, and if I were to bump into them, say on the street, they could alert their handlers, and they'll come after me. So with 1,000 inmates, say they have one woman, just one each, then that's 2,000 people that are my opposition. You double that number, because they don't have just one. They have maybe hundreds per person. That number just adds up astronomically. So plus there's probably offshoots. Prisoners get out and they might start their own thing. So in their city and things like that, and that number still grows. So they're and it would still be attached to the prison. It'd still be part of the prison. Even if it wasn't, it would still be not in my best interest. So I have a lot of enemies. I have over 1,000 enemies, and you take into consideration the prison officials. I don't know how many work there, but it goes all the way up to the highest officials, the parole board. It might even span across prisons in the state. The people who are in the know. I know that a lawyer who on his card, his business card, says that he is a youth advocate, of all things, is involved. And judges could be involved. I mean, the corruption is endless. And you take into account, right, that the judges are Freemasons. All judges are Freemasons. So you take into account that they are already a secret society member that worships the devil. And they must know about this place. They must know what's going on there. I don't trust any authorities. The police that arrested me, I don't trust them. I don't trust anything. There's corruption.
My name is Anneke Lucas, and I primarily identify myself as a survivor of child sex trafficking. I grew up in Belgium, and my family was quite normal from the outside. Father, mother, and 2 children, boy and girl. This was my stepfather. My mother actually had me when she was single. My stepfather was the mayor of the village. And so we were not poor. Growing up for me is in the first years, I had a caretaker, and my mother was single. And I was being brought to a caretaker every day. I loved her. She loved me. And I was actually very outgoing as a toddler. This caregiver, being in Brussels, which is a bilingual town, was French speaking. So I actually started speaking French, not Flemish. Even though I was being abused by my mother at the time, I was also very outgoing, very bossy, little girl. And then when my mother married, when I was 4 years old, I shut down very much. I lost the woman who loved me, who was like a real mother to me. And we moved to Flanders. I learned Flemish. But this was the beginning, the onset really of where I was starting to get groomed to be taken into the trafficking network. So I believe that my mother was targeted by the network. Well, we got a cleaning lady. And that cleaning lady, my mother now had a son by my stepfather, my brother. The cleaning lady started to offer to take me with her to watch me. And so for 1 year, the cleaning lady and her husband took me to outings. So these outings, there's lots of children always. They were from Holland. In fact, we went swimming every week. They taught me how to swim. I never liked them. The children seemed to change all the time. They kept saying that there were cousins and nephews and nieces from Holland. And there were definitely Dutch children there, but also Belgian children. And I was rather confused. I was never really allowed to connect with any of these children, but there were many. They did this for about a year before they took me then to the first event in the network. Once I was being taken to the network, my mother actually took over from the pimps. I don't really know what happened exactly, but I tried to tell my mother what had happened to me and the words that I had available to me at that time. And instead of protecting me and protecting me, she actually started to drive me herself. I was then trafficked into a pedophile network that actually at the time consisted of the VIPs of the country. The boss of the network was the Minister of National Defense at the time. The people involved, I found out later more than anything, but were all quite powerful, had important posts. And it was a mix of politicians, of high-placed officials, in fact, government officials, clergy, as well as aristocrats. And that was the Belgian network. However, this Belgian network connected to what is an international network. Well, it's very dark what happens inside the network. It's a mafia that uses kids to blackmail people primarily. People get lured in, but of course it takes a specific kind of person who is going to go that way, who's not going to stop themselves before they end up in bed with a child. Everybody was in each other's pocket and nobody was free anymore. So first, this husband of the cleaning lady to me, and I was just around my 6th birthday. So I was brutally. Then they took me to what was an orgy in a castle. And it was extremely confusing because it was a masked ball or something. It was masked. And so people were all dressed like hippies. That was the first time. And it was extreme. And it was made clear from the start that if I were to speak out, then not only I would be killed, but anybody, I would definitely be killed if I spoke out. And that was made clear. Not long after that, my mother got a driver's license. She couldn't drive. She just got a driver's license without taking lessons. She got a car without having taken lessons. So she got the only available automatic car at that time, which was a Dutch car. So she was very excited. She actually took me to the registrar office, the sort of Belgian DMV, which was at the town hall, to get her driver's license because she was really proud. And then she started to drive me to the network herself. My mother had a contact who was a woman from a noble family, and I've seen them talk to this countess, which made no sense at all. This countess would have never addressed those people, or would have really not ever addressed my mother either. But my mother sort of bragged about her relationship with this countess. I was 6 when it started, and for the first 3 years I was used as what was called an expendable child. Because my mother and father were themselves not part of this network, as other parents were, they could do anything with me. In the Belgian network, there was a group, particularly aristocrats, who killed children. So a few times I was in situations like that, but I just happened to not be killed. So in this network, you have to understand it's a murderous network. Expendable children, that means that they can be killed. That's to say, it was clear that their lives wasn't valued, so those children could be used for anything. that could mean they could be used for torture and killing. So it's very hard to talk about what happened to me during those first 3 years because it was very extreme. So I was in quite a few extreme situations. I was sometimes taken to bars and given to the men there, but other times I was taken to castles and then waiting with a handler until until the first group of people had left, and then at the late hour the younger children were brought in. Sometimes I was taken to somebody's house for the day. My mother would keep me out of school and then just drive me to somebody's house. And then whatever was necessary, I have remembered things about being in extreme situations with, where other children did die. So my mother was being paid for this. What would happen then with an expendable child is the parents get paid. Of course, there's no contract, nothing is in writing. It's all very vague. My mother's denial itself took care of a lot, but there was money exchanged, and her contact person was this countess. But let's say if I would have been killed and other children were, then a doctor who was part of the network would have been able to write a death certificate, and bring up. So in 1972, I was traded by the boss of the network to an international player, somebody who was in the international network that the boss of the network wanted to do business with, wanted to be in their good favor, because this was someone who had global power. And this person apparently had this countess ask my mother who my father was, and also they drew blood. Anyway, they found out that I'm from one of the bloodlines, which is something that in this global network is very important. So this perpetrator then decided that he was going to get me trained, that's to say, mind control trained, which is torture-based, and to make me an elite slave, and to even give me a platform on the world stage so I could be an elite slave to the most powerful men in the world. So elite slaves are trained, most of them are trained from a very young age, and they can be people who are actually famous, but are actually being used as slaves because it's all about the same kind of mafiosi style. I was being trained to spy, and also I was literally trained to make men fall in love with me at age 9. It was about a month long initially, but it was really a year long. The whole training was a year long, and meanwhile I was already being used. I was taken to Germany on weekends and spent it with someone who I realized later was a very big politician in Germany at the time. I mean, I was, not only did he really like me, but I was also spying on him, and I was reporting about his weakness then to who had become my owner, which was this international network. Basically, when I was going to Germany on the weekends with this, being driven there by handlers of the Belgian network and then dropped off in places, picked up by on the side of the road, actually on a quiet road, by this politician, and then I would just simply drive with him. And so because I had been trained, I knew how to not be, not call attention to myself. He would check in, and this was very similar each time. It was always very idyllic, beautiful places on the beautiful rivers in Germany, in some small hotel pension, and there's maybe 3 or 4 rooms, and so he would have the whole hotel to himself, but we would sleep in the same bed. And then of course it would be all about pleasing him, and for him I know that there was a great joy, or maybe pleasure is the right word, in having these people just fawn all over him and be so grateful and lucky that this very important person is visiting them and is gracing them with his presence. And they would say that, if anything, he would say that I'm his niece. But of course, my German, he actually taught me to speak German, this politician. Better. I didn't really speak it very well. So when we were alone, there was a lot to do about, but he was also just very happy. he seemed just very happy to be around a little girl that was there for him in this way that I was, just listening. I thought, I thought he was great and he was a really good man. And that was my training, of course, as a slave, is to flatter him to the max so that he would feel really good about himself. And that's how he got to feel good about himself. And so he clearly enjoyed the physical closeness a lot, and the warmth, and what then appeared to be love for him, I think. So this 1 year was very peculiar, that I was actually being groomed then on a big scale. And my owner, if I can say that, obviously this person who wanted to own me as a slave had plans for me, and this was discussed even with other people in the network. So it was decided I was going to be a star in France. Everyone was treating me like a star. That's really all I can say. And I had somebody who was giving me facial massages, other massages, but nothing creepy about these massages. There was a photographer, nothing creepy about the photographs, even though I was naked. Everybody was just making me into what I was to become, which was a French singer. There was a singing coach there, actually, and I was, again, there was nothing I could do wrong. Everything was positive. So there was no correction. It wasn't really correction. Everything was, it's like kind of how we are taught now to treat our kids, to just focus on the positive. But I never experienced that before. And suddenly there's this voice coach, and he brings out the best out of my voice, the purity of the voice, and teaching me to sing certain songs, again through repetition, certain French songs, Edith Piaf, Jacques Brel. And I was singing these songs, and it was easy. The French came back very easily. Eventually, I was going to be inducted into the cult. And so being inducted into the cult eventually was sort of my graduation, I guess, or it was to be the beginning of my new life, let's say. And there's been a lot of talk during that year about what my life was going to be, how comfortable, the most beautiful apartments in Paris, the best house on the Côte d'Azur, the yacht, the respect, the platform. Everybody would think I was the best singer, actress in the world, and I would get all the magazine out. It was all prepared, and it was just that what I had to do to belong eventually was just too much. I rebelled and was kicked out. Basically, I was reprogrammed, and I was extremely humiliated and punished. And this was reprogramming to make sure I would never become successful. After I was put back in the Belgian network, the Belgians never really discovering what had actually happened to me, used me for their VIPs then. But a young gangster came into the network, and he had power in the Belgian network because he wasn't afraid to use a gun. But eventually, a year later, he ended up rescuing me. So now it's back to my mother driving me to the network. And once this gangster showed up, things changed a little bit, because he would keep me longer and so forth than usual. And so also groomed me for 6 months, in fact, and started by protecting me and then ended up abusing me worse than anybody else. Such violence. And then, that would have resulted in my being murdered. And then he had a change of heart. And then he made a deal with the boss of the network to get me out. The physical circumstances of this gangster's name is Patrick Hammers. And the politician who was in charge of the network is Paul van den Boeynants, who had a long career in politics in Belgium. And the gangster had also quite a fascinating career in crime. And the deal in 1974 that was made when this gangster was 22 years old, I think, or 23, was that he was going to work for the politician to get me out. He was going to become his whatever left-hand man. And what he did at age 11 is he gave me instructions for life, and they were extremely detailed. He told me never to never sleep with anyone for anything, never do it. That I should not become a drug addict, that I should never buy, that I could take drugs if they were given to me, but I could never do anything to get them. He told me I should not become an alcoholic. I could have a little wine here and there, but I should never drink too much. No hard liquor, once a week for hard liquor, or some crazy rule like that. He told me that I should leave the country, that I should leave Belgium, that I have to go to Paris, London, New York. I have to settle in New York, and I should marry someone who is not an older man who made his own fortune, but someone my age who is from a wealthy family, preferably a family of New York bankers. This all came out of his mouth as he was basically driving me home the last time. And of course, it included to never speak about the network, never say anything to anyone, just never do it. And these life instructions, they settled very deeply inside myself, because he had done this one good act in his life. You know, he had done this thing that was selfless for me. And it was in very dramatic circumstances. And these directions became sort of my guidelines for life, that really got me through, that really helped me. He also gave me some to deal with my mother in the coming weeks, in the weeks that would follow, because he knew she would be angry that she couldn't take me to the network anymore. And he told me to try to leave that house as soon as I could. So once I was rescued from the network, I really was never trafficked again. I followed those guidelines that had been given to me very, very closely. So at age 16, I actually ended up in the red light district in Antwerp. And because of this direction, I never slept with anyone. I was able to reach high functioning levels again, and not just function well in society, but have more empathy and love for people, and really heal as a human being and as a soul. And I think it's important to look and uncover this darkness, however hard that is for each person, before we can actually create that change. And I think ultimately we are the ones that need to change.
In everything. And I just wanted to go on the record and talk about this. There's so much that I haven't talked about, like the telepathy that they have, things like that. But and they have like a fully awakened third eyes. There's so many aspects of this that sorry, my friend over there, he has schizophrenia, so doesn't mean that I have schizophrenia. This might sound crazy, but I assure you that everything that I say is from experience. Everything that I say is real. And it's very traumatizing. I have trauma. The reason why I'm in this group home is because the prison released me from the prison and put me in a group home. Not this particular group home, but a group home before this I was in, and now they put me in here, and I'm back in my hometown area. I'm back in my hometown, which is another thing. The prison plans on taking over my hometown and taking over my hometown area and stuff. So, I come from a very popular island that's very famous. It's known for presidents visits. Presidents live there. Celebrities live there. Yeah, it's, they all visit there in the summertime. So yeah, but I want to make this short. So thank you all for listening, and thank you for watching this. This is not the first time I came out with this. I've been telling some people here and there in my circle, some staff members about this that work here. I've been telling friends. I told my multi-billionaire business partner about it, and he told me that I should write a book. Well, he didn't tell. Other people told me that I should write a book, but the way he put it was like, it's not doing you any good unless you write a book. I was like, you're right. And I was like, I actually plan on writing a book. So I guess that's it. All right. Peace.